Pick up your smartphone for a moment. Just think about it. Sleek, simple, almost magical in its seamless functionality. It fits right in your palm, doesn't it? But inside, beneath that polished surface, lies a hidden world of elements, a complex network that powers everything you do. Neodymium, yttrium, lanthanum. These names might not ring a bell, but they are rare earth elements, or RareEarths, and they are essential. Despite their somewhat misleading name, they're actually not that rare in the Earth's crust. However, finding them in concentrated, economically viable deposits and then processing them into usable forms is an incredibly tough challenge. These 17 metallic elements possess a range of unique properties. These properties are what makes so much of our modern technology not just possible, but also more efficient and powerful. For example, just a tiny pinch of neodymium is used to create the incredibly strong magnets that power your phone's vibration motor. Europium is what gives your screen its vibrant, rich reds, making images pop with clarity. And cerium is used to meticulously polish the glass surface that you touch and interact with every single day. Without reliable access to these elements, the entire tech revolution that we're currently experiencing would grind to a halt. They are truly the invisible foundation upon which our entire digital lives are built. But the story of rare earths is about far more than just chemistry and material science. It's a complex narrative that involves global power dynamics and strategic maneuvering on a grand scale. For decades, while the rest of the world was primarily focused on chasing after oil and gold, China quietly and methodically began to focus its attention and resources on securing its access to rare earths. This wasn't just a lucky coincidence. It was the result of a deliberate, decades-long strategic plan. And now, the entire global technology supply chain finds itself heavily dependent on China for these critical materials. So every single time you tap on your smartphone screen, or drive a hybrid car, or use almost any modern electronic device, you are, in effect, relying on this hidden world of rare earth elements and the complex geopolitical landscape that surrounds them. These elements are truly the unsung heroes of the modern age, but they are also at the very center of a growing global drama. Control over the supply and processing of rare earths is about far more than just business and corporate profits. It's fundamentally about national security, economic leverage, and technological independence. Ultimately, it's about determining who gets to write the rules and set the standards for tomorrow's emerging technologies. And right now, it's clear that one country holds a significant advantage and wields considerable influence in this critical arena. However, the rest of the world is rapidly waking up to this reality and beginning to understand the implications. The stakes in this game are higher than ever before, and the rare earth story is really just beginning to unfold. In 1992, China's leader Deng Xiaoping, a visionary in his own right, made a statement that changed everything, a statement that would reshape global industries and power dynamics. The Middle East has oil, China has rare earths. This simple yet profound declaration signaled a shift in focus, a recognition of a different kind of resource that would fuel the future. It was a clear signal. China saw the future not in traditional commodities, but in these obscure, often overlooked minerals, recognizing their potential to drive technological advancement. While others, particularly in the West, largely ignored them, focusing on other resources and industries, China strategically invested heavily in mining, refining techniques, and mastering the complex processes required to extract and utilize rare earths effectively. Western companies, facing rising operational costs and stricter regulations, gradually shut down their operations, deterred by the high costs associated with extraction and increasingly stringent environmental concerns surrounding rare earth mining. China, in stark contrast, did the opposite, embracing the challenge and seizing the opportunity, absorbing the initial costs, providing substantial subsidies to the industry to encourage growth and innovation, and strategically offering rare earths on the global market at unbeatable prices, undercutting competitors and establishing market dominance. Mines in the US and Australia, unable to match China's prices or navigate the regulatory landscape, closed their doors, unable to compete with the artificially low prices and the sheer scale of the Chinese rare earth industry. China didn't just mine rare earths, they went far beyond simply extracting the raw materials. They invested in the infrastructure and technology to become the world's only large-scale processor of these critical minerals. They meticulously mastered and controlled the entire supply chain, from the initial extraction to the final refinement. ensuring a seamless and efficient transformation from raw ore materials to finished, high-value electronic components. By the time the rest of the world finally noticed the strategic importance of rare earths, China had already won the game, establishing a near monopoly on these essential resources. Deng's prophecy, initially met with skepticism, had become a stark and undeniable reality. The rest of the world was left scrambling to catch up, facing a significant disadvantage in securing access to these vital materials. China's strategy was not accidental or haphazard. It was a deliberate, long-term plan, carefully executed with precision and foresight. And the results have been devastatingly effective, solidifying China's position as a global industrial powerhouse. Look at your phone. It contains at least 8 rare earth elements. Neodymium powers its magnets, europium and yttrium color its screen, cerium polishes its glass. The supply chain starts and ends in China. But it's not just phones. Wind turbines, electric vehicles, military hardware all depend on rare earths. A single wind turbine uses hundreds of kilograms of neodymium and dysprosium. The F-35 fighter jet needs over 400 kilograms of rare earths for its advanced systems. Even missiles, night vision goggles, and sonar rely on these elements. The world's most advanced tech and its security depend on materials controlled by China. This quiet dependency is absolute. China's dominance wasn't luck, it was strategy. They tapped vast reserves like Bai and Obo, but the real edge was in processing. Rare earth refining is complex, dirty, and expensive. As Western nations tightened regulations, China kept costs low and standards lax. They flooded the market with cheap rare earths, driving competitors out. By the early 2000s, China was almost the sole producer. The West lost not just mines, but expertise and infrastructure. China built a monopoly controlling mining, refining, and knowledge. Generations of Chinese experts emerged while Western know-how faded. The world was left outside, looking in. In 2010, a dispute with Japan led China to halt rare earth exports. Japanese tech giants panicked as supply lines snapped. Prices soared, and the world realized its vulnerability. At the time, China produced over 97% of rare earth oxides. Even today, China controls about 85% of global processing. The US must ship its mined ore to China for refining. For many uses, there are no substitutes. Governments and companies are left anxious, hoping for uninterrupted supply. The world's tech infrastructure is hostage to a single source. The risk is real and growing. One country's control over rare earths, specifically China, is a significant global risk that we must address. China can weaponize supply, using its dominance as it did with Japan, creating trade tensions. The threat alone shapes global policy and international relations. China can manipulate prices in the global market, destabilizing markets and stifling innovation across industries. Environmental costs are high. China's lax standards mean toxic waste and pollution, while the world enjoys clean tech, seemingly without consequence. Outsourcing rare earths means outsourcing pollution and environmental damage. The monopoly creates a single point of failure for the entire world. A disaster or crisis in China, whether natural or man-made, could halt global production overnight with devastating effects. The just-in-time supply chain is efficient, streamlined, and cost-effective, but dangerously fragile, vulnerable to disruption. The world is one disruption away from chaos and economic instability. The rare earth crisis of 2010 served as a rude awakening, spurring a global race against time. The goal? To break China's near-total monopoly on these critical elements. The US, recognizing the strategic importance of these materials, and the EU, equally concerned about supply chain vulnerabilities, along with Australia, rich in mineral resources, and Japan, a technological powerhouse, are investing billions in ambitious projects to rebuild and diversify rare earth supply chains. Mining operations are ramping up across the globe. Mountain Pass in California, once dormant, is back in operation, aiming to be a key player. And Australia's Lynas, a leader in the field, operates a rare, strategically important non-Chinese processing plant. New mining and processing projects are launching worldwide, signaling a concerted effort to diversify the sources of these vital materials. But extracting the raw materials through mining is only half the battle. The real, often overlooked challenge lies in the complex and energy-intensive process of refining and separating these elements. To address this critical bottleneck, governments are actively funding the construction of new refineries and advanced separation plants. The EU's Raw Materials Alliance, a collaborative effort, and U.S. defense contracts, driven by national security concerns, aim to break this crucial bottleneck in the supply chain. Innovation is absolutely key to long-term independence, including recycling rare earths from discarded electronics, turning waste into a valuable resource, and perhaps more importantly, developing alternative materials that can reduce our reliance on rare earths altogether. Urban mining, extracting valuable materials from waste streams, and the development of new, more efficient magnet technologies offer a glimmer of hope for a more sustainable future. Every scientific breakthrough, every technological advancement, incrementally reduces global dependency on a single source. The race is on, a global competition to secure the technological and economic future. The world is determined not to build the foundations of tomorrow's technology on a single, fragile, and potentially unstable foundation. The outcome of this race will undoubtedly shape the next era of global power dynamics and technological leadership.